A question I've been asked more and more lately is, which weapon pack should I buy? Now, if it were super easy to answer, I probably wouldn't be making this video, but in my mind, each weapon pack has its own pluses and minuses, and all 4 packs follow the same kind of pattern. One weapon that tends to be very useful and kind of makes the pack worth the purchase. One weapon that's useful but not necessarily better than other options already in the game, and one weapon that tends to be more gimmicky or just more fun to use than anything. So for this video, we'll look at each weapon and weapon pack, talk briefly about what it's most useful for, and talk about what sort of hunter should choose each pack. So naturally we'll start with weapon pack 1, and the weapon that I would say is most useful from it is the 22, and in my mind it's just a necessity for ducks and geese because you never know when that diamond is going to show up out of shotgun range, and it's so nice to have that ready for when they do, because for some reason the level 3 ducks and the level 5 geese, they find a way to show up and spook or just kind of appear seemingly out of nowhere, and having that 22 there to take them down, you know, well beyond shotgun range is so nice. I can't even tell you how many diamonds the 22 has gotten me just because I always carry it just in case. Then we have the crossbow, which is a great bow. It's very capable. It can actually take every animal in the game using the different bolts, and it even has some decent range on it. I mean, 100 meters is really not even an issue with it, and as you can see, it's more than fine even on moose, but the issue with it is the game just doesn't reward bow hunting enough to make it top tier. Just the way the game works, gun hunting tends to be more efficient, and that's why I don't really consider the crossbow top tier, and it's kind of the same for the Recurve. The Recurve is more of a fun, challenging weapon than super useful. I mean, obviously it has its uses. It also can take every animal in the game because of the different arrows, but again, the game doesn't reward bow hunting enough to make it top tier. So all that said, I would definitely recommend weapon pack 1 just for the 22. It's gotten me probably well over 100 diamonds, many of which I never would have gotten without it. I would also go with this weapon pack if you like bow hunting, or especially if you want a challenge with the Recurve. But as far as just useful weapons that I like to carry in almost any loadout, the 22 is the reason I would go with this pack. So moving to weapon pack 2, we're starting with the most versatile gun in the entire game, and that is the drilling rifle. It can actually take every animal in the game due to its combination of rifle and shotgun into one weapon, but there's a couple of things that kind of hold it back for me from being top tier. As I said, it can take every animal in the game. It's more than capable of doing that, all the way up to bison with that 9.3, and of course in the middle with red deer is really, really good. The 16 gauge buckshot for the shotgun barrels is passable. It does decent enough on deer and fox, and the 16 gauge birdshot is fine on geese, but the limited zeroing range of the 9.3 and the high inventory weight really just kind of keeps it below top tier, and even though the 9.3 can take down bison and those larger animals, it does it quite slowly, and I really don't think that lack of power makes the drilling rifle worth carrying. I prefer to carry several weapons to kind of cover all the different classes that the drilling rifle can, just with more power and better zeroing. The next weapon in weapon pack 2 is the Mosin, and in my mind is the best small deer rifle in the game. It's incredibly accurate, it's got a really fast fire rate, and it probably is overpowered for class 3, but it's ethical, and that's what makes it one of the best. It's got the power almost of a class 4 weapon, but it's allowed for a lot of smaller animals. And lastly, for weapon pack 2, we have the 45 and 410 pistol. So if you don't know, this handgun can take both ammo types. It is fun to hunt with, and it's a decent challenge, but it's more gimmicky than useful. It can be decent at close range both for small game and birds, but it's really not a weapon that I'd be carrying in any of my loadouts. Weapon pack 2 used to be the pack I would recommend just for the Mosin. There was a time where it was the best gun in the game, but changes to the scoring system as well as new weapon releases have slightly reduced its effectiveness. I'd still recommend this pack if you like hunting some of the smaller deer species like roe deer, axis deer, black buck, spring buck, or even lynx. As for the other weapons, the drilling rifle just isn't good enough in my opinion to be worth switching out for, say, the 7mm, which is part of the base game, and the pistol is more of a gimmicky weapon than a useful one. So moving to weapon pack 3, I want to start with the 30-06, which is a great large deer rifle. I mean, it really is. It's more than capable even for moose and some of those class 8 animals, but it's been overshadowed by the M1 from weapon pack 4, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I mean, the 30-06 is really solid, and of course the M1 actually fires 30-06 ammunition, but yeah, it's just been overshadowed, unfortunately, and a weapon that I used to carry everywhere just kind of sits and collects dust now. Then the gimmicky weapon, the 45 air rifle. It is actually good on farmins, but it's just not the kind of thing that I'd be carrying in any of my loadouts. It's fun to hunt with every now and then, but is not super special. And lastly is the 22 pistol, which is what makes this weapon pack difficult to just not recommend, because it's good for the same reasons as the 22 long rifle, but I feel it lacks accuracy, and of course it lacks the range and the scope of the rifle, so that's what makes this pack so difficult. I would actually recommend getting this pack to get basically a discount version of my favorite 2 weapon packs kind of in one, and that would be weapon packs 1 and 4, and we have yet to kind of go through weapon pack 4, but the 30-06 is a great deer rifle, as I mentioned. The M1 in pack 4, as we'll talk about, is slightly better, but the 30-06 holds its own, and the 22 pistol, of course, is useful for the same reasons as the 22 long rifle. I would just say that those long shots on ducks and geese that are flying off are going to be far less consistent. As for the 45, it's passable. The 243 does everything it can do and more, but I'd go this route if you're only ever buying one weapon pack, and if you're content with maybe missing out on the 22 Virens consistency on those long shots on birds. It's weird to think that this is a weapon pack that used to be so good for the 30-06, and now is kind of just lower tier. But because of that combination, it can actually be one of the best. But lastly, on to weapon pack 4, and we're going to start with the Muzzleloader, which is the most gimmicky weapon in the pack, and it's still very useful and extremely powerful. The slow fire rate and major bullet drop at range keep me from carrying it more often, but it does actually cover a lot of species with the 2 different ammo types. It can go down to class 3 like the Mosin from weapon pack 2, and realistically probably should go to class 9, but it can only go up to class 8, which is another thing that kind of keeps it out of my loadouts. Then I want to go to the M1 Grand, which I mentioned as we talked about weapon pack 3. It is the best larger deer rifle in the game, and the best grinding weapon, bar none. The fire rate of this thing is absurd. You can kind of see what we do to this herd of red deer. 3 stags, 3 shots before they can even react, and all 3 go down. It's accurate, it's got that fast fire rate. It is so good for the grinding aspect, and if you're just hunting, because it has the power to bring down some of those larger animals. And then we have the 10 gauge, which is actually another really good gun. In my mind, it's the best goose gun in the game. You can see what it can do to geese here. I mean, I had this brown hybrid coming in, which I wanted to get, but to kind of demonstrate what the 10 gauge could do and where the brown hybrid was, I couldn't shoot it that first. And I think maybe the biggest praise I can give the 10 gauge with the bird shot specifically is the fact that I trusted it to get that brown hybrid as it was flying off further away, because I did want that goose, and to know that it would be able to get it even farther away with a bird shot, I think says a lot, because it just has that capability. But it's also very capable at close range with slugs. As you can see on the charging water buffalo, it can bring them down quite quickly. The buckshot is passable. If it were allowed for classes 2 and 3, or even just 3, it would be far better, because it's missing out on a lot of animals there on the maps that it's good to carry on. So for instance, if you wanted to bring it for the larger game like water buffalo with the slugs, you can't actually hunt black buck or axis deer on Parque Fernando. It just doesn't cover those classes, so that's kind of where it falls short. But I would absolutely recommend weapon pack 4 if you play the game a lot. The M1 is so useful for grinding respawns with it being semi-automatic, and the 10 gauge is actually great for goose hunting, which happens to be the best and fastest way to make money in the game as is. Plus it actually has its other uses with the slugs. The Muzzleloader, as I mentioned, is actually absurdly powerful and can cover a lot of species with its 2 ammo types. It's not one that I carry often, but it is actually a good weapon. So I hope this video was useful in helping you guys choose which weapon pack you wanted to go with. I didn't want to just eliminate 3 of them and recommend my favorite, because for one, I'm not really sure I can do that. Each weapon pack, as I said, has its positives and negatives, and I'm not even sure which one I think is the absolute best, so I thought it would be best to kind of just talk about the advantages of each and kind of which playstyles the different weapon packs fit with. So, as I said, I hope it helps. I hope you guys can make a decision based off this video, and I hope you enjoy whatever weapons you go with. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.